security, pretty much 24 hours a day to make sure that site is secure.
Do we not have anybody on site at?
Not throughout the day, not permanently. And then a few other updates, moving down to retail. Remember the removal riders are often going, so we have their commemorative shirts in our store, and we sell those, and the proceeds are donated back to the program from the sale of those shirts. We just received the artwork for the holiday shirt, so hope to have it in store in a couple of weeks. Then we have quite a few new programs happening at all of our museums. There's a list there or online, and I'd be happy to answer any questions for you, but we will have new exhibits in all three, in the Supreme Court, John Ross, and Prison Museum over the next few weeks, including one about the 1843 peace gathering exhibit that will be in the Supreme Court that hopefully your travel group can come in and see also to understand the history behind that. Our motor coach tour to North Carolina will be taking off just here in about 10 days, and that's a sold out trip. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention that I do not believe made it into your report is, since this was turned in, our cultural tourism group was able to attend the Governor's Tourism Conference in Oklahoma City, and were awarded two red beds and one merit, is that correct? One merit award for our marketing campaign for the Sequoia's Cabin opening, and then a merit award also. So super proud of them for receiving those tourism awards at the state level.
Congratulations.
That's the end of the report, unless there are any questions.
I do have a question. Could you tell me how many medical students participated in the Native Explorers?
Do you have a count of how many were in that group, the OSU medical?
I did,
Approximately?
probably
We had-
about 15.
We had 17 overnight.
17, that's wonderful. Was the entire medical freshman class, I'm assuming it was a freshman class? Was it the freshman class?
I'll defer to the
It was.
Heritage Center to answer that.
Yeah, most of them, some of them are just beginning their medical school thing. I think 3 or 4 are first entering. Others are also taking other medical related fields, which will, they'll be a part of the DO, Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine, a holistic approach. But all of the students that are a part of that will be enrolled in the OSU medical program that will be housed up at when the new facility, they'll move into the current Hastings Indian Hospital. And there are a number of former that were alumni from that who are also beginning to reemerge and, say, hey, I was a part of that when it started.
Well, I
It's
think
an
it's
excellent
wonderful.
program.
I think that's a wonderful program to expose them to our culture and our heritage. I think that's amazing. Congratulations on that.
Hey, Molly, on the culture and tourism, the pavilion, we're scheduled to utilize that on the 20th during our tri-council. The weather could be extremely warm. Is there any way, do we have ceiling fans?
We do.
To kind of cool that off a little bit, if it is, pretty warm.
Yes. Yeah, there are 2 giant.
And we're going to try and start, we was scheduled for 10, we're going to move it up to 9.
Last no more than 2 hours. Okay, appreciate that. And the spleen, that's good that we're going to have, because I know we've had some problems with vandalism there in the past. That's such an awesome place for an outing, and I'm glad we're putting a caretaker up there. Okay. Yes, Councilor Critton.
Molly, will you kind of elaborate on the National Treasures book that won a award? They will be receiving it in New York City. Are you all aware of that? Really, really big thing that a lot of folks worked hard on. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The award was an independent publishers organization award, and it's called the IPPY, I believe. And yeah, they were honored with that award. I believe they've already made their trip I think it was or they're there right now. I know it was at the end of May. So our authors were able to go and make
Good.
that trip and accept the award.
It was a big, big deal.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
We're winning all kinds of awards, aren't we? Anybody else? Yeah, Counselor.
Just a comment, Molly, I want to thank you guys for Sequoia Days, and Cheryl and Travis.
Thanks goes to Cheryl
Yes,
and Travis.
it went over really well down there, and I think it was well received, and the people down there are talking about what's in store for next year. So
Excellent.
just thank you guys, appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, you may, when you look at Travis, you see him in a sports coat. But that day, he took the sports coat off. He was setting up chairs, wiping tables, putting up canopy, loading canopies. He works. You earned it. I mean, we appreciate all you. There was a success there. A lot of people there. About 300 people showed up in and out. And at the last minute, we realized the vendors were being fed, but the visitors were not being fed. So I probably had 30, 40 cousins there, because that's only 8 miles from where I was raised. So Counselor Warner kind of bailed us out. I said, can you make a call and feed the rest of these Cherokees here? We can't be eating in front of them. That's kind of not our way back home. So he makes a phone call, and Charlie's Chicken just within 45 minutes delivered, and everybody is kind of like the 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread.
Yeah.
Everybody ate. So appreciate that, Counselor Warner, you and EO for being there, and
Thank you.
it was a success.
Big success.
Yeah. All right.
Add one thing.
Go ahead.
On directions. If you fall off that I-40, you don't know if there any more signs to catch. But everything else is great, and I think it will really grow.
Yeah, yeah.
Big day.
Good report, Mike.
Thank you.
Cherokee language program, Roy Boney and Roy Boney.
Just solo today.
Yeah.
See you on the guide.
Yo, boy.
I got a few announcements here to make in addition to the report. Our Cherokee Link Consortium Group, we're sending 9 staff members to Cherokee, North Carolina from June 12th to the 16th. That's their quarterly meeting, so we're always excited to send them out there. Our second annual Ignite Conference is being held July 23rd to 26th. Registration is open for that now. And what this conference is, it's a conference that teaches teachers how to teach language. So it's focused on indigenous languages. We're bringing in 12 presenters from across the country to do this conference. We did it last year. It was a really good success. We had some great support from CNB, and we have it again this year, so I'd like to thank them for always helping us out when we need it. This conference is a partnership between the language program, the Cherokee Language Master Apprentice Program, and the Johnson O'Malley Program. Like I said, for this conference the goal is to make it a very elite conference people want to come to. Like I said, last year we had good feedback, so we learned from last year, and I think we're going to incorporate some good changes this year, and it is kind of gaining some nationwide recognition for people wanting to come to it. So we hope to grow this conference every year. I'd like to mention, too, that we're working pretty closely with Brian Shade, who is the current interim director of IT for Cherokee Nation. We're going to be developing a website dedicated exclusively to Cherokee language. This is something that we've wanted and needed for quite some time. What we're going to do is we're going to add all our translators' information to it, so all the words they've translated over the last 20 years that we have on file will be loaded into this website. And we're also going to include historical documents in the language with translations and transcriptions of this, so it'll be a nice learning tool for the public. We're going to load our language videos, our language recordings. Everything we have language related will be on this website. So we're going to collaborate too with the consortium group with the Eastern Band and the United Cthulhu Band too to get this going. So we're really excited about this. We tried to get this going for years, now we're finally there. Finally, I'd like to give a little brag a bit on one of our staff members. Jeff Edwards, he works in our language technology program. Last year, he went to a conference in Seattle to talk about the Cherokee language technology that we have. And while he was there, one of the people in the audience asked him if he could write an article for a magazine. So we cleared the communications, and the article was published this month. It's called Multilingual Magazine, and then he wrote a feature about the Cherokee Language Technology Program. We didn't realize what a big deal this is, but the magazine is published in 93 countries, so it's hit a worldwide audience. So we'd like to brag on Jeff for doing that. And finally, our Cherokee language classes for the spring are wrapping up now. We had 16 classes across the 14-county area, plus our online language class. So since they're wrapping up, we're going to start making a schedule for the next round coming up. So if you have any questions.
What was that other date that you said you had those professionals coming in to?
That is July 23rd and 26th
Okay. And they will be where?
at Cherokee Heritage Elementary School.
Okay. Okay, any questions for Mr. Roy? Yes, Councilor Crittenden.
On the conference, they're gonna teach how to teach.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who's gonna be their audience? Is it gonna be some of our teachers or just anybody who wants to attend?
It's mostly we're focusing on a lot of them will be our own teachers, like from our community language program, as will be area school teachers that want to teach language. We also have other tribes coming in. We have some registers from the Creek Nation, the Choctaw Nation, and some tribe from the Southwest. I can't think of the name right offhand, but it's starting to reach out past Oklahoma.
But it's open to anyone?
Yeah.
I had some in my school in Adair County, a lot of them probably around here, the Granny program.
Mm-hmm.
You know, great program, but some of those ladies do the Cherokee First. You can get $200 for putting in 20 hours.
Uh-huh.
And I got that approved or confirmed that it was okay to do that. It's a pretty good idea this lady had where, you know, they use their 20 hours and volunteer to teach.
Yeah.
And I was impressed with this lady's idea, you know.
Where is this at?
Well, just the Cherokee First elders can do it.
Okay, I know. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But just in Adair County
Yeah.
schools, mine in particular, this lady come to me and I said, I think that's a really good idea, but I had to call and make sure it's okay.
Uh-huh.
But so folks like that would, if they were interested, would be welcome.
Yeah.
Just anyone's welcome to
Yeah,
that conference.
there is a cost to it, but we're covering our community teachers, and there's also a scholarship set up where they can just send their info to us, and we'll get them in there, especially if they're first language speaker at Cherokee. We really want them in there.
So that the cost can be kind of
Yeah.
figured out somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
That's a good program. Anybody else? Good report, Roy. Next, we have Community and Cultural Outreach. Rob Darty.
We have some handouts as reminders for our upcoming Conference of Community Leaders, which is going to be in 2 or 3 weeks, 22nd and 23rd. You have your report in front of you, our cultural events and so forth in our communities. Any questions that I can attempt to answer?
As you travel about on the at large, are they wanting to are we able to help them with the Cherokee language? Is that something we do or not?
A lot of them are so far, either Donnie, when we do a cultural, when we send a rep out there to meet with them, a lot of it is they'll ask for language, and some will ask for various things, but it's really difficult to do. So we try to encourage them to go through our Cherokee language program, Dennis Killeroy Boney,
Yeah.
John Ross's program.
What's more of a cultural thing than they ask of you guys?
Probably just everything but Cherokee history.
Okay. Wow.
Bring your attention to this invitation. If you can, RSVP, and the only reason you can come if you want, but the only reason we ask for RSVP is so we can make sure we have enough food. Right now, we just checked, and we have 460 people pre-registered for this conference. And we're going to probably increase it by 100 just walk-ins, people that come, and 70 of them are the at-large. So they're prepaying and so forth. At this one here, we're going to have 33 breakout sessions. And I think last year, Council Lay and Baker Shaw were there last year. We have some pretty national and local presenters, and we're everything from community dynamics of organizing to cultural to history to language. We try to cover everything, leadership, so forth. And this year we're doing a youth track, and we have some people already. The Cherokee Nation Youth Council they're going to be there the full 2 days. And the first time ever, Eastern Band is going to be here representing. They want to see how we do our community programs. And we have as something that if you had stumbled into the Southeast in the 1760s, we have a dance group called Anikatua Warriors. They're going to be here. We're bringing them in, and their style of dance and their style of dance and the clothing is how you would have seen the Cherokees in the 1760s. It's pretty. They're going to perform. We're asking them to be here and so forth. Now, one of the reasons we try to get as many council people there, many of your communities that we work with, many of your communities will be receiving awards. They would like nothing more than to have you as their representative. You up there taking pictures and so forth, because they'll bring the whole group. Like I said, we've got 460 pre-registered as of this morning. So we're going to have a number of people there for the 2 days. Then beyond that, there's going to be 2 or 3 days of cultural enrichment and so forth for mostly our at-large, but then a lot of our local communities come as well too. So we really do want you to attend this 22nd, 23rd, 8 a.m. both mornings. We're going to feed you. We feed you good. We feed you good. That's one thing.
If there was one day that we needed to be there, which day would it that you choose?
I would say Saturday, because the communities we're going to be with the work that they do, the work we identify and award certain communities that are all of them work good, but we have our awards on that Saturday evening, our awards banquet dinner.
Okay.
And a lot of the presentations are continuation or they're being presented again on that Saturday.
Okay.
We start at 8 o'clock, so.
Well, you do feed good, I mean.
We feed good.
Councilor Shaw?
Yeah, I think Rob's being modest. I think you all want to come. These programs are outstanding. I was blown away last year, and the caliber of the speakers they bring in, I mean, it's second to none. And I would hugely encourage you to show up for the 2 days event. I mean, especially we want you at the banquet. But I'm telling you, don't miss out on these cultural presentations and these seminars. I mean, they are fantastic. And the speakers are just amazing. You won't be sorry you came. You'll be very thrilled you're there.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. We do encourage you to come and stay half a day, full day, 2 days. We're going to feed you in the morning and at noon and the evening, and a lot of presentations. And we have a youth track. We have some dynamic people coming in to work with our youth. A guy named Chance Rush. He'll have his crew, and
he's good.
Yeah, he's good. We try to bring in the people that are appropriate for our communities and so forth.
Yes, Councilor.
Rob, you speak about the language that you want to take to our communities throughout the U.S. and world. The problem with our communities are some of those people travel 3 to 6 hours.
2, 3, 4 hours.
6 hours. And that's pretty average. And so the logistics of bringing a program, just getting the people to the community, but they do. I get calls about. I receive calls about the language constantly. And of course, I refer them to Roy and John. But that's the issue.
Yes, it is. It's.
I was. They travel very
when I first
far.
started doing this, you're exactly right. People be driving in 3 hours to attend a meeting. And so I throw out the names Roy, Boney, and Dennis Sixkiller quite a bit and tell them you can go online for a lot of this.
Or other programs too. That's what
as well.
they're interested in.
Councilor Austin?
Yes, if you look back on Roy Boney's accomplishments here, it's number 5 says RSU Works Language Program Partnership finalized. online Cherokee Nation language classes, free, available worldwide.
That's right.
Through RSU for any person. So that's something we can connect those
Yes.
students as well.
Because it's budget-wise and just the logistics, as mentioned, that's really difficult. So we try to press upon them as much as possible online through our language program here. They do well with that.
Yeah. I've got one quick suggestion. We were preparing for the tri-council meeting coming up, and I went out to Cherokee, North Carolina last week. And I had the honor of meeting the guy, Bo Paris, and I know you language people have met him. Non-tribal member, 83 years old. He's the gentleman that translated the New Testament from English to Cherokee. He writes, he speaks, he sings. 83 years old. He's been here before, and I asked him if he could come back one more time and we would honor him. He says, I can't make that trip anymore. So, all I can do is suggest, but it wouldn't hurt for like Roy or Travis or some of our crew. We do really need to interview this guy. He's up there in age. He lives by himself in the mountains there, but he is truly a national treasure. Those New Testament black books that they passed out here not too long ago, that was his work. Just an incredible person. And I'm not for sure they've ever honored him out there.
I don't think so. I think you're right. And adding on, when they have funerals, they ask him to preach. They ask him to speak in Cherokee. My association with him goes back to 1976 when I started working with him.
Yeah.
And that old, you remember Council Shamball? You remember him when we were.
Yes, and another thing about him, he sang a song. Remember that?
Yes, yes.
When the people were moved from their homes, right before the Trail of Tears, that was the last song they sung before they were removed.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard it before.
Yeah, and he sang it that night. So, yeah. Very interesting.
He's a jewel. He just needs to be interviewed, and I know you guys have heard of him.
He could school many of us full-bloods in Cherokee language. Let's put it that
He
way.
really could. He's pretty awesome. Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Thank you, Rob. Good report. Okay. The Historical Society, Dr. Charles Gord. Should have wore red today.
I brought some reinforcements today, so
You brought a good one.
my report is in written form. I'll just go over some of the major highlights, I think, of accomplishments that we're doing at the Heritage Center. But most important of all, I wanted to give plenty of time for Ollie Starr to present the exhibit that they're putting together that we're going to host over at the Heritage Center. We now have the village open 6 days a week. We've hired more full-time and part-time staff, and then the summer youth program starts there in June, so we'll be fully staffed and ready when the tourist season actually kicks in big time. As was mentioned earlier, we had the incredible honor to host for 3 days the OSU medical team, Dr. Kent Smith, and they specifically requested that they be allowed to and to actually spend overnight for 2 nights in the Heritage Center, because it really is the only place where you could actually be living in and experience the time from the 1700s. And Dr. Smith does a phenomenal job of educating these students, not only in terms of the hard medical things you need to do in a clinical situation in a hospital, but also to bring forward the values that come from our traditional ways. And the other thing, they did have the opportunity to meet with Pat Gwynn's group on medicinal wild plants and stuff, so I really wanted to include in our thank you. Pat and all the work he's done is just phenomenal in that. The upgrade on the Trail of Tears exhibit, they have been here 2 times now. We're beginning to think about the technology applications. We will start here in the near future putting out some position papers and kind of a review, and I request again, if you have the opportunity to come and look at the exhibit and start coming up with some ideas of how we want to interpret that. And if we can get that gentleman's name, because Cheryl just pointed out, we need to make that a part of the new exhibit, that this was the song that was sang when people were rounded up. I think that would be a very powerful thing to include in that. The final stages are being done for the Battle of Horseshoe Bend exhibit that we're working with that national group. They came to us. We have the marble identified in the quarry from which the Cherokee stone that's in the Washington Monument. So it will be both here as a stone from that location. That's going real well. We began just yesterday or the day before, I forget now, days kind of run together, but the architectural design and the interiors for the archives facility, Chief Baker has identified funding for, so now we are actually in the process of beginning to identify the preservation things that have to be in the building, and then identifying what will need to be moved first. We're working with CMB and Cultural Tourism to make sure that the items that need preservation work now can be done, so that, you know, and work out our movement plan, because it will be about 1.5 years before the building is finished. And there's another technical term for it. I'm an old heat and air man, so I call it pumping down, but there's another phrase for getting all the chemicals out of it through this process. So that design work and that discussion has started. The final stages next week is the genealogy for the 5 Tribes Conference that's being hosted at the Chickasaw Cultural Center. Gene and Ashley have been doing phenomenal work of getting that both to the national attention that it deserves, and so, you know, we're getting ready to host that in reference to the 5 tribes. They will all have archivists there, historians, people working in genealogy, and we anticipate that next year, once we've gotten through this first stage, that will become truly a major national event. So that's kind of the major things I wanted to present, and now I want to introduce, as if you all don't know who Ollie is. I had the incredible opportunity with Councilman Austin to go to Rogers County and visit the Rogers County Historical Society, the J.M. Davis Gun Museum, and then went over to the Will Rogers, and that led to me meeting this lady, and at that time I did not know they knew each other fairly well, and one thing led to another, and all of a sudden I was trapped into having this wonderful organization, and they've never had an exhibit that's to recognize the things they've done, and what better place to have it than at the Heritage Center, where that's the grounds of the original Cherokee Female Seminary. So I said, this is your story, and they're going to do it, so this is truly their exhibit. Thank you.
Well, first of all, we want to thank the council, and we want to thank Dr. Gord for allowing us to be here today. And as you may not know, our Indian Women's Pocahontas Club was founded out of the female seminaries. It wasn't just founded out of the Cherokee female seminaries, but all the female seminaries, and it was organized in 1899 when they were home for the summer. So, and that was a very important part of, so if you ever go out to the Heritage Center and you see those columns out in front, those stately columns represents the education of our Cherokee people in early days. So that's a very sacred site to our women. And in 1899 we were organized, and That was the year before we had the Dawes Roll, which was very important to our women because they felt that the Dawes Roll were coming on and our Cherokee heritage and history would be lost. So they were very close-knit, but it began as kind of a pastime club and a social club as they came home from the seminaries. And it was formed in Uwela, Oklahoma, which is a small town, which would be equal to Adams Corner out at the Heritage Center. So education has been the utmost importance to our club, our organization. We still focus on educating our young women. And if you recall, when the Cherokees came here, education was the biggest part of their budget. And the heritage, or the female seminary, where the columns are, was where our Cherokee women were educated. So we never want to forget our higher education and why that is an important part of our life. So our exhibit is going to be opening, I think, June 9th, but our formal opening is going to be June the 19th, when Tri-Council's here. All of the council will be is invited, as well as the chiefs and all of the communities in the area. We are going to have a feast in Adams Corner, outside with fiddlers like we had in our early days when we had our fun times. And this is going to be a fun evening for all of you. So we want all of you to have fun, festive, remember education and who we are. Our exhibit is going to be outstanding. And there's been many hours put into it. So we're going to be giving you a formal invitation, and the meal is going to be like it would have been that in that time, old-fashioned fried chicken. And I promised Miss Taylor old-fashioned fried chicken for a long time. Corn on the cob, green beans, new potatoes, sliced tomatoes, onions with vinegar, all of those kinds of things with fresh peach cobbler and ice cream on the porch, homemade ice cream. So we want to make sure all of you get there, because I think the food will be the fun in the food. So thank you for allowing us to be here today.
Dr. Gord, I was reading up on Seminary Hall the other day, and you know, I've said many times before, when I started Northeastern, I wish they taught me more about Seminary Hall instead of early Western Civ. I was learning about pharaohs and Egypt, and we didn't even know what Seminary Hall was for.
Right.
It meant a whole lot more to me, but in parts, somewhere in there, and it was even stated, and I remember those words, in the Trail of Tears drama, in it back in 1899. When you see those words, we need to make that correction. It says about the Cherokees, right before the Dawes Roll, it says, when the nation died and the state came along or prospered. I go, whoa, wait a minute.
Right.
Nation didn't die, and I don't know whose words they are, but when you run into that, and you will, let's make sure that we make those corrections.
We correct it. As I recall, the exact words of that script was, the one great thing the Cherokee Nation could do was essentially destroy itself so the great state of Oklahoma could be born.
There you go.
I
Yes.
always, in the closing of that, that's when my mind just blanked out.
Yeah, that's
And in Seminary Hall, I remember having a class there in education history in the United States, and the teacher up there was carrying on about higher education, and he said the first college level institution in west of the Mississippi River, and he was saying somewhere in California, and the old troublemaker had to raise his hand, and I said, where did you say that was? And you know, I said, I beg to differ with you, and he says, well, just where was this? And I said, you know, you're in the building. It's Seminary Hall, and I said, you are employed by the university. I suggest that you might learn the history of the institution that pays your bills if you're going to teach this class. So.
Did you pass?
Huh?
Did you pass?
Barely.
Well, that was good. That's a good report, and we're excited about it. We'll see how we've got a rough draft of our tri-council agenda, but we'll see where we fit that in.
Yeah.
That's good.
Thank you.
Anybody else before we get them off the hook here? All right, thank you. Okay, dropping down to old business. Is this the film here?
It is.
Okay.
We're jumping from resources. You may not be familiar at all with Medicine Keepers. So this would be a good time to introduce you to them and to the work that they've been doing. We've got Anna Sixkiller here. She's one of the Medicine Keepers in our group, and so we're really glad that she's here today. Pat has been working with the Medicine Keepers since its inception. I'll let him introduce to you before we start the video a little bit about the group and what they've been doing.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to be here for the second time. Apologize for the hiccup the last time, but it is my honor to work with the Medicine Keepers. This is a group that's kind of formed out of some needs that were brought forth from the seed bank, and basically since 2008, myself and some very dedicated co-workers that I have that I will recognize right now. Two of them are in the room. Miss Nancy Ratcliffe, Mr. Kevin Doherty. They helped me work with some very esteemed elders. Miss Hill introduced one of them. The spiritual leader of the group is Crosland Smith, which I know you all know. And they have a very simple yet important mission, and that is to preserve Cherokee plant knowledge, as simple as that. And there's a lot that I could say about it, but I don't think that I could say it any better than what the video is about to do. So can we just simply start the video?
I think we should start the video.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need to honor the earth. The ancestors said the Creator put a spirit in the earth. The soil and the spirit creates the plants that we use for helpful purpose. And we give thanks to the spirit of the earth when we receive those plants from the earth. The best way to honor anything that you take from the earth is to bring together the spirit of the plant and your spirit that God gave you when you were born, and have a communion that is the best and the strongest way that you can honor what the Creator placed on the earth.
Long time ago, when I was younger, people talked a lot under the shade tree because we didn't have no fans or air conditioners. And so a lot of people, older people, when they come to visit my family, they would sit under shade trees, especially in warm weathers. I like the shade tree because it always provided a place for them to talk. And so they talk about this trees, that long time ago there was so much tree that you couldn't see the sky. And so you had to go a long ways to see a little bit part of it, because there's a lot more trees then, because there were no open areas like they do now for cattle or anything like that. And so it was kind of like that, where you could walk under it long ways off. And I guess it's a pretty good area too, kind of cool area to be, and also the weeds and stuff underneath there was not so high or abundance, so it's pretty bare ground. And so people walked on this long ways like a kind of protection, you want to say. So all this land was kind of preserved with everything in it. Well, healthy land provides a lot of stuff, food and plants and animals, and so it has a lot to do with food and healing, I guess you could say, and well-being. This one's called Udlosine. It's kind of like a blackberry type thing, and that's one of the fruits they had out in the woods they could get. And so they had a lot of stuff in the woods. They had other stuff like huckleberries, and they had like a wild blueberry, and then they had other plants like watercress. So they had a big old place to get stuff in the woods. So it's like a big Walmart. So they live off the land, in other words. I guess you could say that there'll be quite a big loss if it's ever gone. And so I guess when you say it that way, it's there's a lot of loss to it when all these plants go. And these plants were provided by Creator too, so they were there for them to use. And so I guess you could say a lot of cultural stuff will go, and a lot of way of life will go, and it just kind of leaves it kind of in the openness to that rich cultural heritage, you know, the way of life and what they did and what they created.
I took this picture because my grandfather would sit by the spring to watch bees. Grandpa lived about a half mile up the hill. We lived downhill. And in between there was a spring, and everybody used that spring. Grandpa would sit by that spring for about 2 weeks. What he would do was watch the bees. Now that spring was surrounded by clover and honeysuckle. And he would watch the bee as they come in and then get a drink of water. And then he would watch them which direction they went. So he would go that way in search of honey. And so he would find the honey. It was usually in a hollow tree. And then he would ask Daddy, let's go get some honey. But what they did was they just got in there for a few jars, and then they left the rest for the bees to have. And so they would bring it back, and then we would strain it, and then we would put it in jars for our winter use. Our winter use was for like sweetener for different things, and medicine, like cherry bark or hickory bark, and they would put honey in there for cough syrup. Those were some of the things that I thought about when we first started doing this. Health really comes from the land and how we take care of the people and the land. And I think the Creator put it there for that purpose. There's a lot we've lost already, but still yet, it's time to take care of what we have now. That spring, that was so pretty. Right now, I can't find the spring because different people bought the land, and then they just turned the cattle loose in there, so they just tromp it down to even with the rest of the land, and you can't tell where the spring has been.
This photo's red oak tree, and we used the bark for, like if you got bad colds, that's what they used it for. And they just get the inner bark It's different from the white oak, and the bark protrudes out, and then you'll have creases, and the leaves are slick, smooth, and we call it ataya. They call it ataya. It means the real trees in Cherokee. That's the white oak or post oak, juisk in Cherokee, white oak, juisk. And that's what they use, same way, combine that with the red oak and the white oak and the hickory bark to make a tea out of it. That's the hickory tree. One name would be hickory. And that goes with the red oak and the white oak, and they use that. That's the leaves. It'll have 7 leaves with the hickory. Okay, this is the wild cherry, and cherry will be titaya. You can use this just by itself, and it'll be one of the strongest drink that you can get, and it's for your colds. If you got congested, that's what they used to use. There's 4 things, like I said, the red oak, white oak, and hickory, and wild cherry. They mixed all those together and boiled it. Both of my parents knew the herbs as medicines. My father used to tell me that all the plants that we see is medicine, but a lot of them is, we've lost the knowledge of it, and every plant was important to Cherokees. We don't know half of as much as our ancestors did. But they didn't have hospitals, and that's what they used these plants to keep healthy. And we need to learn from that. If we eat more wild foods, and if we use the medicines that our people used, we'll be in a healthier state. And the only way we can preserve it is, we got to protect it. And there's few areas that you can find all these medicinal plants, but there's a lot of farmers and ranchers. They'll just cut everything out to raise cattle, and the Cherokees didn't like that when I was growing up. That's where Cherokees used to hunt, and now they can't go in there. That's where they used to gather, even to go look for wild onions. And that's what was important to our people. It still is. You can't go into those places anymore. We need to preserve our area somewhere. We're losing a lot of our culture, even our language, and the language that goes along with our culture. We've got names of all these trees and plants and our environment that we have, and if we don't protect that, we're going to lose it all. I've been advocating for a number of years, and it's to have our own national park. We can call it Cherokee National Park. But we need large acreage just for our environment to go back to a natural state. And it takes a lot of work, but I think it would be beneficial to really start thinking about something like that. Set aside, 10,000 acres. If we had that much acreage, we wouldn't have to worry about, losing it. Somebody bulldozing the trees and plants and everything away, and putting cattle in there, destroying the environment. We could protect that for our future generation. It's never too late to do that.
This is a picture I took of a sassafras, and it has a lot of medicinal purpose. The Cherokees use it a lot. I took this photo by the house going up our road, and we have a bunch that grows back behind our house. And I was told by the old people that it would help your kidneys. My daddy was a great medicine man. My father used to tell me that Indian medicine heals from the inside out, while the white man's medicine just kind of dulls the pain, or it doesn't really cure you. It might stop it, but Indian medicine, every Indian medicine or Cherokee medicine that we have heals you from the inside. All kinds of medicine that you take from the woods, you do not take all of it. You take what you need and leave the rest, and then you have to ask God and the little people and the medicine keepers that are there in the woods, and you have to tell your clan and what your name is, your full Cherokee name, and just, to me, I just kind of pray over the medicine before I take it. There's a lot of land clearing, for cattle. Cattle's got to have land. And people just go in and doze the place, never researching what is being destroyed by clearing land or making highways. I mean, where does it stop? I think that Cherokee Nation and anybody that's in a position to preserve the medicinal plant, I think we need to preserve what we've got.
When we were growing up, all the way, through the water banks, there used to be a lot of cane, but now there's not that much. And I used to remember how tall they used to be, but now they seem like they've shrunk. Some people say when you don't make use of what is provided for you, it goes away. Well, my aunt, she's passed, and she used to make river cane baskets. And when I see that, I think of her. And we used to go out when we didn't have fishing rods. So when we were kids, we used to go out and just cut one down, and fix it and go perch fishing with those. During the summer, when we were growing up, it was just me, and I had 3 brothers, but we always went fishing. We went crawdad hunting. So everything, any activities that we had was centered around that creek. Clear waters. We used to get our water out of the well, and they used to tell us, it was pure water. But now they say, no, don't drink it. I mean, has it changed that much? I mean, I wonder, why was it safe for us to drink back then, and then they don't allow it?
Minutes are just as the link to it so you can watch the rest of the video. But I just wanted to give you all an opportunity to hear what we've been hearing from the medicine keepers. In that project, they were all given cameras and sent out to take pictures of places and things that matter to them. And this was the result of that project. It's called the Photo Voice project.
Photo Voice. Yes, all of the pictures you saw in that were taken by the elders.
Didn't we pass a resolution about a month ago on some property for medicinal purposes?
I'm not aware of that, if we did.
I thought we did. May come through natural resources. It seemed like they didn't. It seemed like it was some acreage. It seemed like Councilor Shambaugh presented that. But take a look at that, because I visited with the chief over the weekend, and there was other property that we're looking at around Lease Creek, and for this purpose right here. And I think it's a good thing. There were been times where I remember Hastings Shade and I went down south. He said there was medicinal plants there that weren't here in Cherokee County. And Big Country, who graduated from OSU, and there's a guy named Eddie Martin. Eddie Martin was willing to give us, just deed it to the tribe, just if we were going to use it for this purpose, close to 4,000 acres. And I don't know if we ever took advantage of that, probably not, but this is a good thing. I think it's, and that Edwards lady that spoke, I was always taught if you don't prune it every year, then it just goes away. So this is a good thing.
Well, one of the things that I have learned from the Medicine Keepers is that, it's hard to talk about natural resources or language or culture separately from one another, that those things are tied together really tightly. And so that process of educating all of us and learning things from the Medicine Keepers has been very beneficial to me. They've taught me a lot for sure, and I wanted to be sure and have an opportunity to communicate to all of you, and you're going to be hearing more from us as time moves on. They talk about a national park, but I think when John Ross says national park, what he's talking about conservation, which is not necessarily recreational, but set aside more like a national forest.
Sure.
An area that's protected so that people can use it for traditional purposes like that. And trying to protect that, I think, is something that's really important. So I wanted you all to know you're going to be hearing more about this from me, from us, as time goes on, and to let you know what we've been hearing from the Medicine Keepers, so that we were all kind of on the same page about what their thoughts on it were, because I thought it was really important.
John was probably thinking about the Cherokee, North Carolina. They do have a national park because they're in big reservation area.
Right.
Whereas we're so checkerboard out, it'd have to be pieces and plots of property that we need to look at.
Right.
Okay, anybody else? This is interesting here. Yes, Counselor.
Ed, I know you're familiar with the rock fence plan that's for sale, and I visited with Realty, but in your discussions, don't forget about that beautiful place. River Cane, Bloodroot, just, you are familiar with that spot, aren't you?
Walked every inch of it.
Beautiful, isn't it? And talked to Realty, like I said. I think that would be in the running for some kind of land to acquire and take care of some of the stuff that's already there. Thank you.
Good area, yes. Counselor Buzzer.
Just listen to this video. I'm to the age that I've used a lot of this medicine for medical purposes when I was a kid, so I kind of know what they're talking about. It's a shame that we live in Delaware County and we've dug thousands of acres of land off there in Kenwood. And there's still some left up there. But, it all goes back to this people sitting here. If we don't give direction to our administration, this is never going to get done. Never. I have talked about gardening for years and years and years here. What's done? Nothing. So if we don't take a hold of something like this, it's never going to get done. We give it to CNB on gardening, you talk to administration, still the same way. We're still talking about it. So it's up to this group of people here to make this happen if we want to make it happen. And I agree. I think this needs to be done. So it's just one of those things, we can sit here and talk about it all day long and make years and years. If we don't pass legislation or something, it's not going to get done. Thank you, sir.
Good. Counselor Hatfield.
This past weekend, I was on my ex-homelands, where I grew up, and my grandmother and grandfather's allotment, and I was so excited. I found a sassafras tree. Okay, I was very excited because I haven't seen one in a long time, and my grandmother always chewed on that stick, and we did the leaves. I don't know if anybody did. We chewed the leaves. I didn't know why. My grandmother my grandmother had, lots of roots, used the leaves, whatever, berries. And so then I researched it, and then I kind of know why she was probably chewing on that after 12 children. So she probably needed a little, but I didn't know that. I never knew that. So it's kind of interesting we're looking at this today, and I'm just like, oh. So
reason for all of that.
There is a reason.
Ginger is such a valuable plant out in the homeland, Cherokee, North Carolina. That's almost like gold to them. I mean, it's really good. Well, this is good. I'm glad that you brought this together, and I think council members, if you have that type of property that we're talking about, Rock Fence and some of these other places, you know, we can initiate the funds to purchase this valuable land that they don't make anymore. We're just taking it back. It was ours anyway. So, you know, if we ever find a piece of property like that with nice springs and, you know, medicinal purposes, let's just appropriate the money and do it. You really don't even have to ask anybody. We just come in here and do it.
We do have some tribal lands too that we've been evaluating for this, and we've identified a tract of land that we think is going to be a good start on this. So that is something that I will be bringing back to all of you to say this is a piece of property that we think is, and we will be coming to you as that moves forward. But we think we already own some tribal property that is a good candidate for this type of project. So not that it's a project that's ever really done in my point of view, but a good start on that kind of project.
Sure. Councilor Cynthia.
Would we need to form a study group or something to help with that, or what can we do to push it?
Well, I will be coming back to you in Culture and Resources and talking more about it as we work with the medicine keepers and come up, because a lot of it, there are lots of tracks that might work, but it's really the medicine keepers who know what tracks are the best for that. So, I mean, certainly you can do whatever you wish. But I will continue to communicate with you about this as we move along. So as opportunities for action come up, I will be sure and alert you to them.
Yeah, in my old community back in Sequoia County, I'll go to them because we have medicine keepers there. They know the land, and each council member go to your elders and say, what piece of property do you think we should have back to the tribe? That's your answer there, and they'll let you know. Okay, anybody else? Good report.
Thank you for your time and your patience with us getting it moving to you.
Okay, Shelley, is that it on the no resolution? Okay, new business, none pending. Announcements? Need a motion to adjourn?
Still moved.
Got a motion and a second? All in favor, signify. We're adjourned.